So hi, everyone. For those of you I don't know, my name is Maura Tumas. I am a theology teacher and co-moderator of our Global Scholars Program here at Regis in New York City. Before I was at Regis, I worked as the associate PACE for the East Coast, which is how I got involved with global work. So when I came to Regis, I was looking for a way to engage us as a school more deeply in this part of the JSN. So we are building here at Regis, and this summer reading program that I'm going to talk about is just one way that we're doing that. A lot of our work is also really heavily supported by our assistant principal for student life, who's Christian Mariano. So if any of you are in the trips exchanges part of global education, he is your contact. And my colleague AJ Debonis and I do our Global Scholars program. I am going to say off the bat what I said to Catherine when she asked me to do this. I am very happy to share what we do for summer reading and how we use it, how it fits into our school culture and the texts that we've chosen. But I don't feel like an expert on Global Scholars programs by any stretch of the imagination. Nor do I think summer reading is like a revolutionary idea, but it has been very useful for us. So hopefully what has been useful for us will also be useful for you. And if not, don't tell me. I don't know. So, okay, so let's get started. We at Regis are in our second formal year of our Global Scholars Program. My colleague AJ Debonis and I were both teachers in the theology department, and a few summers ago we did basically a professional development learning lab where we imagined this program as a way for kids to bring together all of these global threads that they were experiencing in their coursework. And this is meant to be a reflective mission-based vehicle for them to understand that all as global and to tie it to that definition of a global citizen from the JSN. We do not have academic time dedicated to this. So anything that we do in our Global Scholars program is done during community time, after school, or the odd field trip here and there. Our second year cohort went to the UN a couple weeks ago, which is a distinct advantage that we have being here in New York City. We accept cohorts early in their sophomore year. So we have 3 different programs here at Regis that we roll out at the end of freshman year. We have a science research project, a student historian project, and us. And these are thought of as kind of your extra academic options. They're all application-based. And we have not gotten to the point yet where we offer credit. We do offer the JSN global designation on the transcript, but we don't have credit, which is why we're not built into the academic schedule. We are in the process of accepting our second cohort. They will know by the end of this week. No spoilers for those sophomores here at Regis. But so kids are accepted at the end of, we do a trimester system here at Regis. So they're accepted at the end of their first trimester of sophomore year, and then they progress through sophomore, junior, senior year. We have been working with our, like I said, assistant principal for student life to hopefully incorporate some sort of global immersion experience into that third year. So that's where our partnership with the student life office comes in. We had our first 2 kids here at Regis do long-term exchanges last spring, like 3 and 4 weeks. So we're hoping that our cohort of juniors will all possibly have that option next year, whether it's a travel immersion or some kind of immersive cultural experience here in New York. And because we're a 3-year model, we use the See, Judge, Act, which is super familiar to you guys, I'm sure, but it's, close to the IPP. And that's kind of how we frame all of our programming. In the first year, the kids are learning more about global issues. In the second year, they're discerning how those affect their lives and where they can insert themselves in action. And then the third year, they're taking action. That's why the third year will culminate in some sort of project and or immersive experience. Do you have any questions about just how our program works before I get into what our actual texts are? Okay, cool.
It looks like Erin's raising her
Oh,
hand.
sorry, I couldn't see.
Sorry, I don't know if you said it. I might have missed it. Did you say how many students you have in your cohort?
Oh, no, I actually don't think I said
Okay.
that. We have 16 in our first year cohort, and we're aiming to accept 15 to 16 for our second year.
And what is enrollment at Regis?
We have about 135 kids a grade, so we have
Okay,
close to 500.
thank
Sorry,
you.
you said you have 16 students?
Yeah,
Okay.
16 in the first, and by the end of this week, we'll have accepted 15 or 16 more.
Well, okay, thank you.
Some of them are still on the on the edge. We're discerning. Okay, so the reason that we decided to do mandatory summer reading was because we don't have a course, but also because of the timing of our application process. We thought summer reading would be a good way to kind of get buy-in from the kids who were interested, came to the info session at the end of freshman year, but we wanted to see how they actually engaged with issues. So the summer reading conversation is the first thing we do in the fall with both prospective sophomore cohort and our junior cohort. And then that's how we set up using the themes of those texts for the year ahead. For the sophomores, you can see the books on the slides, but here they are in person. The world is a really good just like overview text. Richard Haas was the president for the Council on Foreign Relations for about 20 years. And he wrote a really, I think, accessible enough, I guess, for high schoolers book that offers kind of a brief history, like very brief, how the world got to where we are, then a chapter on each region of the globe, a chapter on what he perceives to be global areas, or I wouldn't say threats, but places where we particularly are going to need global cooperation, and then a chapter on how that global cooperation works. Because he was the president of the Council on Foreign Relations, he obviously believes really strongly in global entities, right? And maybe even gives them more credit than they are able to practically, you think about like the limits of something like the UN or, but he believes wholeheartedly in international cooperation, which is what we want the kids to be looking towards and understanding their own role as a global citizen. So that's the first text. The second one, the Let Us Dream text, serves two purposes. It really grounds the program as a mission-based program, right? This is not just you're going to learn about foreign relations or you're going to talk global policy, right? This is something that ties to our mission as a Jesuit school. Obviously, choosing a Pope Francis text empowers that, but he also structures, I don't know if any of you have read this, but he wrote it during COVID. And he talks about basically like the whole idea of don't waste a crisis. Like what is the world going to do to cooperate in the wake of the COVID crisis? And his three sections are a time to see, a time to choose, and a time to act. So they mirror the themes of our 3-year program. So it's also a way for us to set up for the kids, this is just like Pope Francis kind of calls us to respond, this is how this program will respond to the needs of the world using this structure. And I say role in the application process because how they engage with the conversation around the summer texts gives us a sense of how they'll be in the program. We also, because they don't apply until the end of their first trimester, they are invited to all of our colloquia programs, like any speakers and things that we have throughout the fall. So we see like who shows up the most consistently, right? And who kind of has the most buy-in along the way. For the second year, our texts are We Are Displaced by Malala and Call to Discernment in Troubled Times. These, in particular, the Brackley text, Call to Discernment in Troubled Times, are their tool for discernment, right? In that judge year of the program, kind of understanding their role as global citizens and understanding like you can't solve all of the world's problems, but where do you feel called? Because Brackley's text, I don't know if any of you have read it. If you haven't, highly suggest it. I love it. I return to it so often, which is probably why we made it the text for this program. But it follows the weeks of the spiritual exercises. And his language around downward mobility is particularly meaningful, I think. Particularly for us at Regis, we're on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. We're an all academic scholarship school. So the boys are constantly told like how special they are. And they are, right? But this idea of like you exist in one of the most multicultural cities in the world, but how do you engage with that? So the partnering of particularly the chapters on downward mobility in the Brackley text with the stories of the refugee women from We Are Displaced. We Are Displaced, again, very accessible read. Every chapter is written by a different woman who was served by the Malala Fund. And then the last chapter is a family that sponsored a refugee family in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So it's kind of another picture of like, this is the world, right? These are the people who are living in the world. And do you see that and through what lens? So that we hope gets them to deepen their understanding of the definition of a global citizen as they begin their second year, which is all about, okay, now you've learned about these global issues, where do you see yourself in them? So one more slide and then I will take questions you have. Why did we use summer reading instead of like giving them readings for each meeting that we have? Two reasons. One, summer reading really fits into our current school culture. We don't have required summer reading for classes, but we have a really robust culture, like book clubs culture over the summer. Kids are doing book clubs with different teachers. Our faculty puts out like a recommended reads list every summer. So
Are they asking about like AP Physics 1
right.
and 2?
So kids are really reading a lot already.
Okay.
So this is not like unexpected for them. And for us, by making it required,
Should not be
when
shared with students.
other courses don't have required work,
No, it should be a
holds them
direct
accountable
letter.
to this
Like if it's
program in a way
communicated,
that
it's
we're
gonna
not able
come
to
directly from the counselor to
because we can't do grades. And whoops, sorry. And then it gives us this framework for the programming for the year without being too rigid of you read this exact thing for this meeting. Like we can kind of go in the direction. Okay, I think that is everything. Like I said, summer reading is not revolutionary, but I do think these texts really fit our programs and they would fit programs at any school. Are there any questions? You don't really need to see my slides to do that, so I will stop sharing so I can see all of your faces.
Maura, could you talk more about, I mean, I know you have that culture of, this is Jenny Kens, by the way, of the book club type activity in the summer, but do you do something with the students in the fall then when they come back to engage them with it, or does it actually happen over the summer?
In the fall.
In the fall.
Yeah, we kind of let them go for the summer and say, when you come back, you have to have read both of these texts for both cohorts. There were a few reminders, particularly in August, right? Like, hey, remember you have to buy and read these. But we didn't like do any Zooms or anything until we got back.
Mhm. And then as part of your Global Scholars meetings, you facilitated conversations about the books to kind of kick off the year.
Yeah, and then we've used, so for the rest of the programming that we've done this year, we've used the books as like a framing device.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have like guided reflections that you had them follow in the summer or?
Yeah, I have like our discussion questions that we used with our juniors. Same with our freshmen. I can share those with anybody. Also, if you choose to use the world, Haas has made like teacher resources for this text. So even if you have a course, you should get on this because he has all kinds of questions for analytical essays and reflection questions. They're all on the Council for Foreign Relations website. So that's an excellent resource, even if you have a course.
Maura, I too am curious about like the mechanics of when you're using this, if that's okay, recognizing that this focus has been sharing these thoughtful content pieces, understanding that you did not have defined course time. I think you made reference to community time or something to that effect. Could you share a little bit about when and where and how you're meeting with your global scholars?
Yes, and that is where we would like to be better. I mean, not to say we don't meet. We do meet regularly, but we meet based more on what speakers and trips are available. So like I said, we had this opportunity to go to the UN just this past Friday. We had an alum who was a former ambassador to the Czech Republic come speak. We did every year we do something after the UN General Assembly meeting on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But we don't have like a set, every cycle we meet, mostly because our schedule does not permit it. What we do require of our scholars is that they go to at least 3 colloquia sessions. So like these speakers or field trips or things a trimester. And then we have just the cohort, no speaker, no whatever, at the beginning and the end of each trimester. So that's when we really use the themes of the text, but in those discussions. But when we are like having a field trip, we'll say, okay, think about these, questions as we go into the trip, or for this text really came in on Friday with the ambassador because he worked in the Czech Republic like after the fall of the Berlin Wall, so moving towards democracy. So what was the US's role in democratizing, Eastern Europe and that area? So it was able kind of like we call back based on what we're doing.
Thanks so much.
Excuse me, can you write the name of the book on the chat or the
Oh,
other
sure.
names, please? Thank you.
Yes, I can.
How many of you have like a community? Maura, you're talking about the colloquia or because in my head, I'm thinking, okay, when does that happen? Is that everybody, just the global scholars, everyone in the school? How many of you have like a community time? I feel like a lot of schools are going more towards that. Okay, so quite a few, but not all.
I will say if we didn't have community time, we probably would have pushed much harder for like a once a cycle meeting in our schedule.
Mhm.
Because community time is at least like, unprotected most days.
I really love the use of, they come in having done the reading and with that foundation, like as you said, also, especially some of you have talked about so many students applying and how to make sure they're all, really wanting this. And that is, you know, they come prepared and they've put that time in. I think that's really a great way of using something that might be happening anyway, but for this purpose. So it's good. I think I'm going to pass to Rob unless there are other specific questions. And Maura, maybe you can put your email, if you don't mind, in, and if anyone wants, like, "Hey, could I please have the reflection questions or the list of books or anything?" This is a really important, I think, and helpful to everybody as we all sort of navigate, what does it look like to not have a class, or even when you do have a class, what does it look like to layer our curriculum? So, good.
And I'll also add one thing, when we
Thanks.
choose our texts for the third year cohort in the spring, I'll
Yeah.
add them to that shared doc that we have, like our global shared doc.
Perfect, that not everybody is adding to. So while Rob's talking, I might just get that link and put it in the chat, or maybe in the email after, because it's really helpful to have that. And if each of you could, you can even add questions in there, and we can get some conversation going on it, so we're not reinventing. Thank you, Maura, very, very much.
Problem. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody, for listening.
Rob?
Okay, great. I'll share my screen here. So thanks, Maura. That was, I mean, really, I think was some stuff that we can all apply to what we're currently doing. That's always good to get everybody together and share ideas. The purpose of my presentation is just to share some of the things that we have as a part of our curriculum, and hopefully that generates some thoughts of some things that maybe you can incorporate, or just I think that's all, that's what we're all here to do. So in our case, at SLU, and those of you that don't know me, my name is Rob Chur. I teach Russian at St. Louis University High School. And I'm the director of global education, along with Maria Paz Erker, our assistant director, who I think more of you have crossed paths with her recently at some of the recent gatherings. So what we're about at SLU, and I'll just kind of take you through the little presentation I put together. First and foremost, I think we all probably recognize, everything that we do, we want to focus on this wonderful definition of global citizenship, and, what intentionally evaluate how what we're doing contributes to this goal. So that's kind of our guiding principle on everything. How are we moving our kids in the direction towards becoming this very ambitious definition that I think we all appreciate and identify with. And some of the, that's kind of the why. Some of the how is, using what we already have in place. The UAPs, even though they do have a shelf life, they're not going to be around forever, but at least at the moment, these are our guidelines, our direction of, as we try to create these experiences, what are some of the Ignatian pieces that fit naturally into this, and just focusing on these four guideposts has, I think, helped us out tremendously as far as, shaping what it is we really feel like. There's a lot of things we could do in global ed, but, using this as our litmus test of, how much of this our experiences really address specifically has helped us immensely. And then, there's kind of the practical side. Obviously, we live in the Ignatian world, which we all understand, but that's not the entire world. How do we now extend this to a more universal approach. And, I think we all recognize the SDGs and, can easily find Ignatian roots in them. They're, again, fantastic resources to kind of help guide us and give us that direction that might otherwise be lacking. So that's kind of what fuels what we do. But it all kind of comes back to where the rubber hits the road. Thinking globally, which this can all feel like drinking from a fire hose. Keeping those thoughts open and looking at the bigger picture, but acting locally is the way that we actually make this happen in our own community, and where we are actually going to focus not just the intellectual piece, but the actual action piece. And the way that we do that is through a couple of different approaches. At SLU, we're very fortunate that, as we, this is our third year, our third cohort of Ignatian Global Scholars, and this current senior class will be the first students who actually graduate with that honor. As we looked at some of the pieces that go into the project, we're fortunate that we have a lot of those within our curriculum and within our school experiences. For us to create the language immersion exchanges with at St. Lucie High, we have Arabic, Chinese, French, Russian, Spanish, and Latin. Obviously, the modern languages have language immersion opportunities that we're able to incorporate into the summer mostly, but it's obviously something that appeals to the kids a lot from that standpoint. There's also service immersion opportunities. Our campus ministry office, long before we began consciously thinking about global ed, we had some people who were kind of visionary that started programs in Honduras and at Kino and in Guatemala that were focused on service immersion, and the school subsidizes that because it is service related. So incorporating service immersion programs. Second semester, all of our senior class does not go to school the entire month of January. They do a senior project, and 30 of those students each year do them at global sites. But there's also a great opportunity for us to incorporate some of the underclassmen during spring break, again, kind of through our campus ministry office, but ultimately overseen by us in global ed. And then, we're, again, fortunate that we have faculty who have these passions to bring in travel experiences, international experiences, global experiences, whatever you want to call them, into various different parts of our curriculum. So this spring break, for example, 8 students will go to South Africa to work with an organization that rescues rhinos. There's obviously that ecology piece. And that's only because we have Dr. Kathleen Dwyer, who did that before she became an educator at our school, and she's able to kind of bring that experience in. With theology, we do the Ignatian pilgrimage every year, if not every other year. Our social studies department has a lot of passionate faculty who are able to bring in experiences like Cold War themed travel, or this year we're going to do ancient cultures in South and Central America. Our fine arts program, the music program. We have faculty who are organizing music programs in Germany this spring break. So, allowing all those kind of organic pieces to have the support that they need. I mean, that's the big thing that that allows these things to happen is to not put all the heavy lifting on them and allow them to be the experts, but for there to be that support from my office to take all those, less than exciting tasks off of their plate, makes these things a lot more accomplishable. And then the acting locally piece of it, with all of the exchanges that we have, we host about 50 international kids per semester on our campus. So those 100 students need places to stay with. And most of the time it matches up where, a kid travels and then he hosts, but sometimes that just doesn't work out. Kids are in different situations. And so we're able to allow our kids who are maybe not involved in those programs to serve as host families. We also have One World Club opportunities, which is really, I'm speaking about what Maria Paz and all of her work is. It's kind of the in-house programming where, we have speakers, local events, conferences, virtual programs where the kids can get involved. And, like we get that question all the time. Hey, I really want to be involved in Global Head, but I just don't have the funds to travel. Like how can I still be involved? Being a host family, being in passion, being actively involved in One World Club on a weekly basis, and that question was raised, like, do we have community space? We have every day we have at least a 45-minute period where One World Club can meet and plan. Today they just did an event with the International Institute of St. Louis about the refugee situation and ways to get involved here locally. And then obviously, of course, the Ignatian Global Scholars, that's a lot of our kids, I think, are able to find some opportunity to be a part of that because there are so many opportunities for them where, there's not as big of an ask. A lot of their programming already kind of fits into some of the requirements for that. So it's easier to recruit to that. And then the last thing that I think is an interesting, really exciting outcome that we were able to achieve 3 years ago is that we have a global education graduation requirement at SLU. So after the pandemic, we kind of reimagined our curriculum and our graduation requirements. And one of the things that we proposed was that every student in their 4 years needs to be involved in some way in one major experience during their 4 years. And that could be being a host family, that could be being a part of One World Club, that could be traveling, etc. And this current group of juniors is the first group that's actually being held to that standard. And I think right now we're at about 72% of them have already fulfilled that. And then, we've got some other, they'll have opportunities in these next 3 semesters to fulfill it so that we're not dealing with 50 kids second semester who are trying to fulfill their requirements. So we're trying to stay ahead, and it seems to be an easier task than we thought it was going to be. And just to kind of, put it all in, a chart perspective. So again, like if we're going to expect kids to do something at some point in time in their 4 years, we have to be very active in planning with them. Our school counselors are get involved in this project, and I, on a quarterly basis, will update parents and students who haven't fulfilled their graduation requirement of the opportunities that they have. So you can, we don't have to read through them all, but you can see, the language immersion opportunities for freshman year, educational travel, service, virtual exchanges, which has been something that's really been a huge bonus for us. We sponsor our own Global Activism Leadership Summit. We also do a Modern Languages Summit that is kind of in-house. And then we do the Language Academy, where kids just speak in English with refugees in different parts of the world. Last year we did Ukraine. This year we're focusing on Jordan and eventually Guatemala. So those are some opportunities for kids to get involved. And then just some of these outside organizations that we're a part of, Level Up Village and Global Education Benchmark Group, which is kind of our sponsoring institution. And then in the summer, there's some leadership programs that kids can attend in person. The Inland Oceans program, the SDG Changemakers here locally. And then the last thing on there you see is the course that a lot of us are familiar with that Seattle University is developing. And we're excited about having that as another option where kids can get involved. And Senior year, the offerings look pretty much the same, except for you see there's that big senior project service piece where the kids can go to Jordan, Poland, France, Taiwan, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico to get their senior service project fulfilled, but also to have that global experience along the way. So, and there's our, our little tagline that we always like to share. But that's just kind of an overview of the things that, we've tried to create that ultimately, very much, serves that IGS program. We, in light of having the global ed requirement, our approach has been, we took 10 with the first class, 15 with the second class, and then we'll take 20 with this next class. And we're thinking that, like 25 would probably be our, kind of the limit for a while, because we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we've taken on too much and we take our eye off the ball with the graduation requirement that we're doing internally. So with that said, if there's any questions out there, I'll be happy to respond.
Rob, I have a question. This is Alan Wilhelms at St. Ignatius in Cleveland.
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. You do marvelous, wonderful things there. I have 3 quick questions for you based on what you said. For the educational travel programs, when you mentioned the 5 or 6 academic departments, do those trips go every year or do they sometimes lay off for a year?
So every year we offer something that is associated with that department. So for example, this year, theology, a faculty member wants to do the Camino with the students, and we're not going to do the Ignatian pilgrimage.
Yeah.
But most years we do the Ignatian pilgrimage. So that's like theology's spot. Social studies, they kind of rotate, and different faculty do different programs. So science, social studies, theology, and fine arts, they do something every year, but it changes.
And when you say every year, they do an international trip with kids every year.
Exactly. Yep. Either
Okay,
spring
thanks.
break or summer. Yep.
Thank you. When you mentioned under the Act Locally section, hosting families, and you said upwards of 100 visitors, and I think I read 6 different countries or schools. Are those reciprocal? Do your kids then go to those 6 different countries and schools?
Yes. Yeah. So it's all reciprocal visits from when our kids go over there. But again, we always deal with students who, for a lot of different reasons, they're taking care of an elderly grandparent, or they just literally don't have the space. And we don't want kids to not be able to participate in the outbound program just because hosting is a hardship for them. So out of our hosting team, there's usually like a third of the hosts who are kids that did not participate in the outbound. And it's a good opportunity for families that want to be involved and to be involved in that role.
Thank you. And I realize I'm taking a lot of time. I have one quick last question. When you mentioned for senior projects and places on earth that your students can travel to as a senior project, is that part of a group or do they go essentially individually?
So a faculty member accompanies them for the first week to make sure that the project is running smoothly and that the kids are okay. They're staying with host families, and these are all with Jesuit partner institutions. So,
okay.
For example, I take the kids to Poland, and we're in Gdynia and Krakow with our Jesuit partners there, and those schools are overseeing them. I'm there for the first week just to make sure everybody's off to a good start. Same thing with all the other spots.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me take the time.
Yeah, that's all right.
No, thank you. And I want to just mention for those of you who are maybe new to all of this, and I feel like one of those Instagram posts where this is where it started and this is where we're at, or I don't know the exact wording, but you know what I'm talking about. Don't feel if your school is not offering all of these at this point that that you're not at a space where you should be, because what's really beautiful about all of the programming and the work is how much is done in school. Like Rob, I loved all the ways that the students that don't travel, you have one of the biggest travel opportunities overall, but you don't have to, so if someone isn't able to because of sports, because of money, of whatever, there are the opportunities. So I just want to state that there is not a right or wrong way, and the right way is to just keep layering what we see as think globally, act globally, locally into all of this. And I wanted to ask I liked when you said that within the courses, like you're allowing the organic pieces of, if I'm a social studies teacher and this is what I'm teaching, or I'm doing this project in my statistics class, and they're getting the support. Are you, or is anybody working with maybe your deans or some specific teachers? Like, how are you going about doing that? So anybody can answer like more of a global issues focus or content in classes across the curriculum.
Are you asking me?
Yeah,
So, and that is actually an area that we have asked for more bandwidth. We have, and I, as I go through these options, again, we're extremely fortunate that we do have so many people who really do get what, the importance of global ed and really have bought in big time. And again, these are things where we didn't have to convince people. They came to us, and and I'm sure everybody's got people like that in their building. But we also know that sometimes people think, oh, you're the guy that runs trips. That's what global ed is. It's trips. It's, and, we've asked for that time. And I think we're eventually going to be allowed to do that, to do some kind of faculty development piece where people really get, not just the big picture of our kids have these opportunities to do all these things, but for them to really truly understand what global education is and why it's so important to us as Jesuit schools. And that takes a little while. We're not there yet.
Rob, very impressive as always, the total package that you guys offer there. Quick question on the language programs that are available to kids. Are those all taught in-house, or are language programs, if I sign up for a language program and it's taught at a night school or something like that, that's eligible as well?
So, yeah, I mean, we're always open to having kids participate in these programs if outside of maybe their the language that they take. Typically, though, like with the language immersion programs, we offer them to the upper level students, so they have to have some degree of proficiency already. Like, we're not taking kids with absolutely zero proficiency, but we have taken kids who, we get a lot of kids who are native Spanish speakers at home. Mom and dad say, like, do something else now. And then maybe junior and senior year, they participate in one of these language immersions where, that language that they speak at home now is the main thing. And they come away with, that deeper understanding of their language that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So, all of the language immersions that we have are focused on our 5 modern languages: Arabic, Chinese, French, Russian, and Spanish. 99% of the kids are the kids that, are at that 2nd or 3rd year level of proficiency that would allow them to participate. But, we're always open to allowing kids in if there's a good reason for it.
Rob, I have a question. Thank you for your, this is Joe Ryberg from up in Omaha.
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. The particularly impressive list of trips that you're able to take kids on. Just to follow up on that, are you able to provide any sort of financial aid to kids who maybe can't afford that? And could you, if yes, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So The way that we work financial aid, because ultimately that becomes a big part of the question as well, is if a student receives financial aid to attend St. Louis U High, then they are eligible for financial aid to do these types of, extra parts of our curriculum. And we extend that to pretty much like everything that we do. But if you don't qualify for financial aid, then, we ask people to pay the full amount. So, and that usually becomes a process of tell us what you think you can contribute, and we'll see if we can handle the rest.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
On the trip, so December 16th, which is a Monday, I believe, it is our next virtual check-in. And Educate Majas has just finished it's actually been years and years in the making. We finished it once, now it's finished again, a database for if you're looking for an exchange partner. And then some Floxy representatives are also going to attend there. So one thing, again, to layer it again with the curriculum, a lot of requests that I've been getting is how do we put curriculum around trips? So there is pre-lect, maybe a course. How do we, what happens during, if it's an exchange while they're there, if it's pilgrimage, I'm seeing, what happens, and then what happens post. So that will be the focus.
Can I speak to that, Catherine?
Please, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. So we just did our first exchange with Japan, and we did the full exchange in Hiroshima, which was very, very, very moving. But in order to launch these at Bellarmine, I was asked to create a template, an education template. So I'm happy to share that, and it's very Ignatian. So we have 5 mandatory education sessions that the cohort has to go through. And in those 5 sessions is very structured, which has Ignatian global citizenship, social justice issues, along with cultural competency, and a little bit of language. So I have something, you guys can use it if you'd like or not.
No, please share it. And maybe while you're on right now, even if you want to do a quick share of
Sure.
of the leader's manual.
Yep. Okay. Can you see? Is it working? Am I on? Okay, so I wanted to share with the team, or Catherine asked me to share this. As you guys know, at Bellarmine, we have a team of 5 folks on the leadership team for Ignatian Global Scholars. And this is our 3rd year with the program. I've lost 3 and had to replace 3. And every time I'm sitting with a prospective faculty or staff, they want to know what do I have to do? So I used Canva, and I put together a booklet for Ignatian Global Scholars, and I'm just going to flip through it kind of loosely and quickly. You can see here's the table of contents. It talks about Ignatian global citizenship, the program itself, the universal apostolic preferences. How do we select scholars, and what is the role of leaders in that process? They always want to know how much of my time, so we have meetings in there, and how we grow scholars as mentors, the action project, and how we're trying to grow the program. So that's in here, and it's up on the drive, which I'll show you in a minute. And I basically just got this stuff from Catherine, the information. And the other thing I wanted to show, Catherine, which I haven't talked to you about yet, but I am getting, now that we went to Japan, we're getting more and more parents are coming to me like, how can my son get involved? How can I want to get involved and I talk about global programming at Bellarmine. So I took the same thing, and I'm almost done, adapting it. So instead of leaders right here in the front blue bubble, you'll see forming global citizens. And potentially this could be used at open house or whatever, but it's a pamphlet that has similar information, but now my audience is going to be a parent or a student, who's inquiring like, what is the Ignatian Global Scholars Program? And what are the requirements and how do I get involved? So I'll stop sharing
Awesome.
there.
Thank you. See, this takes an hour of your time to come, but then you get all this ready-made product that Cora makes for us. That, Erin, you've been, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
Thank
doing
you.
this from my
Please.
browser and I can't find the hand thing.
No,
Rob, I had a quick question for you about funding. So we have, we have students that can pay like outright, obviously, and then some that would need financial support. But what I have heard from my administration is they are only providing scholarship support, which is measly at best, to students who are participating in the immersions. But like, for example, I lead a trip to Spain every other summer. There's no financial support for students for that, even though it counts as one of the global events for the Global Scholars Program. We have a trip to Italy. They don't get any financial aid. So I'm wondering where that money comes from, if you could share, and maybe I can try and wrangle up some here.
Yeah, well, I think we're all dealing with the same problem that, there's just a lot of things that schools would like to subsidize that, it just becomes hard to find the money for everything. As much as we have been able to, we've tried to kind of work this into operating budget as far as like with the, service opportunities. That kind of got woven into campus ministries operating budget. And so that's one that, we've kind of absorbed, and it's not so volatile. That's not the truth. That's not the case with all of them. I'm fortunate in that all of the things that I do with Russian, which is Poland and Latvia now because I can't go to Russia, that's stuff where I've got alumni support that specifically are giving towards. So, and we're not there yet because we've got all of our, campaigns going on, but eventually, that's going to be a campaign for the near future, to potentially find those alumni who have specific interests in these different initiatives where they could provide that seed money that wouldn't take this from operating budget. So.
Thank you. And Harry, you have your hand.
Yeah, hello. I have a quick question about obviously amazing with Robert talking about the international travel and with Maura, you were saying I really opened my eyes to the summer reading aspect. That really is great. That's something I had thought about. But I'm also curious if you guys are looking at having really Zoom conversations with other IGS student groups.
Thank you.
So in that sense, obviously as I sit right now, about 100 yards from Regis. I could definitely walk over there and have a conversation with them. But I'd also like to have conversations. I know, Rob, you do the Global Activism Summit, which is amazing. I was curious if some of you guys are looking at having just Zoom conversations about global issues, global UAPs, like all these kinds of things about reflections that have happened of juniors or seniors within your program. We're a program that's much smaller than most of what you guys are describing. We have 7 or so each cohort, smaller school, but so maybe it's harder if you have like 25 or 30 students in the room. But have you guys thought about those, or is that something that's outside the curriculum that could be happening in your program?
Harry, are you saying Zoom like with other JSN schools or with? Yeah, I love.
So like having Loyola IGS students Zoom in with SLU or Zoom in, obviously there's different ways in which you've done it, but specifically IGS students talking with other IGS students, working through some of these issues, talking about things like migration, and how migration is impacting New York City versus how migration might be impacting other major cities or other areas.
I'm going to say to that, I have been getting a lot of input on this, and there are like Fe and Alegría has Generación 21 Más, where they're basically scholars meet. So I am also very curious on this. Is there a way we start connecting our global scholars? And I know we're at time, but is there a way we start connecting our global scholars? And how many people are, maybe that's a question I can even put in the follow-up email, since people are dropping like flies right now. It's 3, or it's the
Catherine,
end of
it
the
seems
hour.
like I know it's the end of the hour. I wonder if, capitalizing on something that's already in place, like Maura's book group, where global scholars gather in a structured way and there's regular meetings. And maybe for some of those scholars that counts as their global event. It depends on the school and how they want to
Great
structure it. But I think
idea.
anytime there's regularity and we build on something that we can do across the time zones and then meet together, briefly, if people can make it, they can make it.
I love that.
One of the things that my school
Yeah.
has also asked about is specifically around this is there some sort of like list of students who have completed this program from other places that they could like connect with or network with, not just in the current year, but later on? Like maybe current students could connect with alumni who have done this in the past. Or, like once kids are already on to college or out of college, but have done this program, is there a way for current students to connect with them in some way? Which could just be like an ongoing list. I don't know.
Yeah. We are keeping numbers, but not names and emails of, like when you write in for your certificates, Nina is keeping track of how many and what grade, but not, we aren't keeping, but that's an interesting idea. But then they lose their school email too. So it's an interesting thought to think about how that would happen. Anyone else? Oh, Pete's coming on. Hi, Pete.
Should we all say goodbye at the same time?
Yeah. Bye, Pete.
Good thing we all hung out for you.
Please, everybody say goodbye.
Bye, Pete.
Dare you.
What a good group.